Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, the Habs are second in the Atlantic, and how did they end up here? And it's Monday. That means 3 up and 3 down inside today's show.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 943 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin. I'm joined, as always, by Laura Sabat, the Active Stick. And we want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day wherever you get your daily podcast, whether that be Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you are watching us on YouTube, tell all your friends and also follow us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens. And, well, I know I was attending a Halloween party and I could only, check in bits and pieces of the game, but I managed to go back, watch the recap. Gotta say, Canadiens being second in the Atlantic, or tied for second in the Atlantic, I guess technically the Leafs are ahead on goal differential, is a wild thing. And I know we are 8 games into the season. But Laura, did we at all expect the Canadiens to be at this spot, especially after losing Kirby Dach almost immediately?
I will say they're getting more wins than I am expecting. They are overtime or shootout wins, but they're getting more wins than I'm expecting. I know we're going to talk about the game structure a little bit later in today's show, but I am a little bit surprised. I'm impressed with how they're kind of handling things because the day after the news of the Canadiens' injury, the Canadiens came out so flat, so defeated. I believe it was against the Minnesota Wild that game. They did not seem resilient in any way. However, they are proving themselves to be adaptable. We're going to talk a little bit about the strengths as well later, but I'm finding some things in their game, particularly at even strength, that I'm liking more and more as time goes on.
And so again, and I also missed the Columbus game due to, work.
It was wild.
We will touch on bits and pieces of that in 3 up and 3 down. I know that much, but again, it was okay start, maybe a little bit sluggish, not great, and then a hole that they have put themselves in, and then just sheer force of will, comeback kind of domination. They're like a car in the winter that you're trying to warm up a little bit, that it's like you're sitting in there, you're cold, you're miserable, and then the minute the heat and everything regulates and gets to where it needs to be, your engine warms up, you are comfortable, you are cruising until you get to work, and then you got to get out of the car, but that's besides the point. We're going to talk about the slow starts a little, but again, it was the same thing. The Jets scored, 2 goals in 33 seconds in the second period there, and all I think is, well, this run was fun while it lasted, but I looked at how these goals happen, and I went, it's just little brain farts. And some of that is there's not a lot of vets on this defense. It is Mike Matheson, who left this game, is day-to-day right now. He's traveling with the team to Vegas, which if he's not playing, God bless whatever goalie will be in net there, because that is going to be rough. Vegas is a very good team again. And the Canadiens defense without Mike Matheson is, I don't want to say the worst in the league because the Sharks exist. Sorry, JD. But it's definitely like bottom 3 without him in there. And that's without David Savard. Even Chris Weidman is out indefinitely. They don't have a veteran on defense. And I that is the thing that worries me, is that Matheson is playing so much because he's the only veteran. He plays the penalty kill. He plays the power play. He does this. Luckily, the good news is Kaden Guhle is back in the lineup. Gustav Lindstrom is the healthy scratch in favor of him. And in his first game back, Guhle had 2 assists and looked phenomenal. And I don't think it's possible to understate how important he is to giving Mike Matheson even a little bit of a break right now. And a healthy Kaiden Guhle is great news for the Canadiens.
I think they kind of need each other in a different way. Like, the way that I see it is that Mike Matheson needs Kaiden Guhle around to take some of the load off him, the workload in terms of not just minutes on the ice, but also assignments. And I think Kaiden Guhle needs Mike Matheson around to continue helping him build those habits. Like Mike Matheson is the veteran presence that has the like when we say underlying numbers, a lot of the time we're talking about the way players approach a game, the way that they kind of, direct the puck, the way they kind of direct the flow of play. So I think that's something that Kaiden Guhle can continue to learn from Mike Matheson, because Guhle has all the talent that he needs to succeed. It's just the sort of like the training aspect of it, the learning, the growing part of it that Mike Matheson can bring to his game. So for me, for my money, like whenever they're both in the lineup, to me that's the optimal situation for the Montreal Canadiens future.
And I'm looking at natural stat trick in the background right now too, and I'm looking at this game and like I thought the Canadiens' first period where they had an 18.18 Corsi for percentage. They didn't have the puck at all at 5-on-5. Next period, 52.5, then 46.67 in the third, where it balances out a little bit. Shots for terrible in the first, scoring chances for terrible, and then it kind of levels out. High danger chances for all Jets, and then it evens out. It's just one of those things that if they can kind of corral this, they might surprise a lot more teams, even with their injuries. They're not winning pretty games, and I think that should be clear. But these are also games that after those 2 or 3 goals went in last year, that they're full meltdown and just nothing good is coming from it at that point then. And it's a resiliency thing. This is a team that doesn't want to just roll over, whether that be Martin St. Louis being the world's greatest motivator, or it's just a team that's like, we're fed up with this. We're gonna do our best here. They have some difficult games coming up here. Vegas is no joke. Like, I'm just gonna double check the schedule again. Like,
It's
Vegas is
Vegas
tough.
on Monday night, and then it's the Coyotes, which it's the Coyotes, but still. And then there's like 4 games in the next week.
Yeah, so they have Vegas and the Coyotes this upcoming, and then the Blues on Saturday, which up in the air. The Blues got absolutely shellacked by the Canucks during the week here extremely badly. That's a game that they can be there to win. The Lightning, who knows? Their goaltending's been solid without Andrei Vasilevsky, and they're still the Lightning. That's going to be a good test game. The Red Wings are on fire to start the season, kind of like the Canadiens, better than the Canadiens have been. And then they play the Bruins after that, and the Bruins haven't lost in regulation, I believe. It's
The Bruins are the Bruins.
The Bruins are the Bruins, which is annoying as hell that they lost one of their greatest players of all time. They're like, we're just going to start the season 7-0-1. You can just deal with that. And it's very frustrating.
It's annoying.
And the thing is, it's good for the Canadiens because they're going to get their adversity here. They probably won't win half of these games, if we're being honest. And if they're competitive in them, I still think we're doing pretty well, all things considered here, without Kirby Dach, without David Savard, potentially Mike Matheson, and kind of an unsettled goalie room, and something we'll talk about later on in the show here. I'm glad they're getting these wins now because there's not going to be many of them in the future, it feels like. They are doing what they need to do right now, but there's still so much. They are putting a good foundation that we can come back. The Jets are a team that can score a lot of goals. That is their thing. They don't play defense, but they can score a lot of goals. Against Columbus, they're a pesky team that has the ability to sneak up on teams, and the Canadiens were able to handle that maybe a little bit grossly at first, but came back and did that in that game here. The overarching theme is this year is that if the Canadiens are down, we can't count them out anymore. And I think that is a huge confidence booster after this game against the Jets, which we also, didn't mention that Justin Barron scored again, 3rd goal in 5 games, first guy since Andrei Markov, first defenseman since Andrei Markov to do that. Nick Suzuki had the only goal in a shootout. Of course, Nick Suzuki scored in the shootout. They have another power play goal. Sean Monahan got a power play goal in this game. And then Yoel Armia scored, which if you were looking for a feel-good kind of thing for that, that's exactly what you want to see. If his name's really out there in, trade rumors, this was probably a pretty good game to get on the score sheet for. So it is Monday, though. And Monday means 3 up and 3 down. And we always start on the downside of things because we want to be able to cover what went wrong in the week or what isn't working in the week. and then we're going to go talk about all the good stuff in our final segment. We're going to get into all of that coming up next. But first, it is so hard sometimes to find tickets for the shows that you are looking for. I went to a Bills game this past week, and searching for last-minute tickets is an absolute headache and a nightmare. With fees, is this seat going to be any good? How am I going to do this? Game Time takes all the work out of that with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Game Time will take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. They do last-minute game tickets or event tickets. You want to go see a show at the theater, you want to go see a concert, Game Time has you covered there as well. They do flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets for any event in your area, guaranteed. And they have coverage for if you lose your job, you have seat insurance and you can't make it. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms apply. Again, that is create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first order. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We're back here at Locked On Canadiens. It is Monday, and everyone knows on Monday that it is time for 3 Up and 3 Down. And if you are new here, welcome. 3 Up and 3 Down is how we break down the week that was for the Canadiens or around the NHL, the good and the bad. And we touched on this a little bit in the previous segment. The Canadiens got to stop starting slow, because against the truly elite teams, starting slow will mean losing early, because they are not the Jets. They are not the Blue Jackets. All due respect to our friends who cover both of those teams here. They are not going to be in the same stratosphere. A team like the Bruins or Golden Knights are not just going to sit back and then wilt on a lead there, because they are elite teams in the NHL right now. And I hate saying that about both of them. If the Canadiens can level out some of those and not have it be so lopsided or not give up goals in a very short window of time, I think they're going to start surprising a lot of people here. And that is, again, one of the biggest problems this week. Started slow, but when they got in gear, they are just going for it. And I think that's good, but also bad at the same time.
Well, it's interesting in that in the previous games, their first period was always dominant, and then the second two periods were abysmal. And now they've kind of reversed it, and they're basically squeaking by with an overtime winner or a shootout winner. So it's exactly like you said, against better teams, this is not going to cut it. And it's going to be something where like they end up losing 6-1, right? It's going to really take the wind out of their sails right at the beginning. So they need to find a way to be more consistent over longer periods of time.
And that comes with being a more experienced team. Yes, the forward group is, a nice balance of veterans and young guys. A lot of it comes from the defense being inexperienced, because everything starts in your own end, and that they are sometimes scrambling. When the Canadiens' defense back there is leveled and they're making smart breakout passes, this offense just hums along like a machine. The issue is that was also when they were all healthy. They are no longer all healthy at this point, which is a problem, but we're not putting injuries on the list this week, at least the down list this week, because, well, that feels unfair. Also, Lane Hutson's back and Lane Hutson rules. So, what are you going to do? Also, my down list this week, as everyone knows, I cover the Laval Rocket for Habs Eyes on the Prize pretty regularly. The defense is a problem. They had 2 games this week. They gave up 12 goals in between those 2 games. It was 7-4 on Friday night and 5-0 on Saturday night. The young goaltending for Jakub Dobeš is not getting a lot of help. He is not exactly covering himself in glory as well on some things. He'll make a great difficult save, but like a long-range wrist shot that you think he should stop kind of goes in. And then just the Rocket can't stay out of the box, and when they can't stay out of the box, they surrender power play goals. This sounds familiar. I know. I've also watched the Montreal Canadiens for the last 3 or 4 seasons at this point, and the veterans are like, we have to do better on that team. That is the silver lining I'm taking out of this, is that they know. They know. And I know a lot of people are going to be freaking out like, oh my God, the goalie prospect isn't playing well. Oh my God, they're getting blown out in games. this is what happened last year a little bit. It took about a month for the Rocket to kind of click into the proper gear. They had games where they couldn't score goals, couldn't stop goals last year. And this year, it kind of feels a little bit more like it's going to be that again, which is unfortunate because it looked like they had a lot of promise starting the season here. But they've played Abbotsford, a tough team, Rochester, who's very good, and Syracuse, who's one of their boogie teams and always has been. But they got to fix things a little bit here. They got to, the veterans who are on that defense, so Toby Paquette-Bisson, Nicolas Baudin, if he's in the lineup, etc., have to be able to pull their weight better. Guys like Matthias Norlinder and Jaden Struble and Logan Mailloux have been doing the best they can, but without veterans to kind of help guide everything through here, it's like we've seen at the NHL level. It becomes a bit chaotic, and then the goalies suffer for that. I know I have talked a lot on this because the AHL is my baby. Laura, it's October 29th when we're recording this. It's far too early to pull the chute on panicking and start panicking about the AHL season, correct?
Absolutely correct. And they're going to figure it out. It's going to be, the AHL is kind of a learning league for the Montreal Canadiens at this point, right? So they're going to figure it out. And I think, there's a lot of young defensemen that can learn a lot there.
And I don't know if you had anything else on the down list, but I didn't get to mention this because I wasn't on the Thursday show due to being at the Buffalo Bills game. The officiating this week has been, boy, has it been an experience. I was following along with the Habs and Blue Jackets game via Twitter while I was at the stadium, just checking in on things, much to Carly's chagrin because I need to be on my phone less as an adult, which is true. A couple of hits from behind that weren't called a penalty, but they immediately called any kind of even up on it in a fight. The first one where Arbor Jacki got hit face first into the boards. Okay, boarding penalty, fighting major. But they also gave him a roughing penalty in the middle there too to even this up for some reason. I don't know why. And then later on in the game, not even later on, like 5 minutes later, Alex Newhook gets run from behind and they don't call anything on that. They call, I want to say, another roughing penalty afterwards. I think it was Tanner Pearson who stepped in that time. And it's one of the more obvious ones that you can tell when somebody's being hit from behind, especially a dude the size of Arbor Jacki. Like, what are we doing here at this point? That just call the major penalty here. It's if you hit someone from behind face first or head first into the boards, just make it a major penalty. You can review it afterwards, and if it's not a major, it's not a major. But I don't understand how things ended up even when things like this are happening. And they wonder why games get out of control and more fights happen. And when you just let players run around and do things like that, that's why. And it's a problem. We've talked a lot about how, NHL officials don't hate your team. They're just bad at it. This year, with the amount of penalty minutes the Canadiens have gotten, it's starting to feel a little bit personal for some reason. Laura, you had a chance to watch this and talk with Jay a little bit closer about this. I'm not crazy that the officiating this week is, at least in Canadiens games, has been rough or a rough around the edges, to say the least.
I think it's been inconsistent. That's the nicest way to put it. It's been inconsistent. Sometimes it's been inconsistent with what we expect based on the law, the rules. But I think the officials let that Canadiens Columbus game go out of hand. And a lot of times when you do that, you're not going to be able to rein it back in without making some really questionable decisions, right? And that's exactly what happened. They let it get out of control, and then they were just doing anything and everything and scrambling and really not making consistent decisions.
And I think that's the thing here, is that it's, if you don't police the game enough, it gets out of control where you have to start over policing the game. And it's so there. I admit it is hard to find a balance sometimes. Sometimes, if you call the first thing that's going to set off a powder keg, good. You kind of can quell it there. But the minute Jacki got run from behind and they evened it up on there, that I went, okay, this is going to get bad now. And then you let Newhook get hit. They're lucky it didn't spiral worse, because we've seen games like that one. There was a random Panthers game a few years ago. Every now and then there's just a game that everybody is angry for some reason that I don't fully understand. You have to keep control of it. And that doesn't mean calling too many penalties. It means calling the right penalties. Because if you keep sending one team to the box, whether they deserve it or not, like there have been a lot of flops this year. There have been a lot of missed calls, sticks that didn't actually hit people, hooks that weren't hooks. Teams get angry. If you're just calling everything and letting other stuff go, it's a powder keg. And the officials have just not done a good job this year. I watched the end of the Canucks Rangers game on Saturday night, and there was an egregious missed penalty in overtime that resulted in the game-winning goal for the Rangers over the Canucks. It's bad. Like, the officiating this year around the league has been suspect, to say the least. It's on my down list, probably not for the last time this year, but I missed the chance to talk about this during the week when it was still relevant to the game that they were playing. So we're going to move on, though. We are done being pessimistic. We are moving into the land of optimism, sunshine, and goaltenders rainbows, goaltenders from the East Coast of Canada and on, and that's all coming up next. But today's show is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you think about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. It's the middle of the NFL season. It's the middle of hockey season. The NBA is up there, and the app is so easy to use. You can bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more, and get paid out instantly in an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season and more with FanDuel, the official betting partner of the NFL, and us here at Locked On. And as always, we here at Locked On Canadiens encourage you to please bet responsibly anytime that you are betting on sports. It is the end of our Monday episode. If my voice sounds a little bit rough, we had a Halloween party and I had a Bills game within 36 hours of each other. My voice is completely gone at this point, but you're not here for that. You're here for the up of the 3 up and 3 down this week. And let me tell you, Laura, we have some good, fun names kind of tucked in the up list here. I want to start with Jake Allen, to whom I owe an apology after the Leafs game. Jake Allen has now put together 3 quality starts, a win over the Sabres. He didn't beat the Blue Jackets. That belonged to Montembeault, I believe. Kaiden Primo got hung out to dry a little bit against the Devils, but he had another good game here against the Jets on Saturday where he kind of overcame things, was calm, composed, where he needed to be on everything with the 3 goals. It's hard to blame him on anything with the way that one of them was a penalty shot and 2 of them were just broken down defensive coverage in his zone. I got to ask, I know Montembeault hasn't been bad this year, but is Jake Allen stealing the starting spot back right now?
I think it's possible. I also feel like he knows, like he's one of those players that's been around long enough to know when he needs to be better. And it seems like he's kind of, worked on that a little bit because we know that we always knew that he had a better showing than what we saw against Toronto. We always knew that. It's just that it was the wrong time for that to happen, if that makes sense. Like the Canadiens were still trying to figure out like which 2 goalies they're going to keep and what to do with the other ones. I think Montembeault is still going to be solid. I don't think that we have to worry about that. Like I don't think that his game is going to change that much from the previous year. But I think that Jake Allen is trying to get himself back into that conversation. And he kind of understands that he's the guy right now in terms of the veteran presence, in terms of the person who needs to be more reliable, whether it is to kind of, foster Kaiden Primo or Samuel Montembeault, like he needs to be that person. Or if it's just to get himself to another team where he's going to have more of a role or he's going to have an opportunity to go to the playoffs.
And I have the Canadiens goaltending stats pulled up behind me here. Jake Allen has played 4 games. He's 3-0-0-1. He had that overtime loss or shootout loss against Toronto. 263 goals against, 930 save percentage. That's pretty damn good.
Really good.
Samuel Montembeault has played 3 games. He's 2-1, 329 goals against, 901 save percentage. Also not terrible. I'm not including Kaiden Primo, who had 1 game where I thought he didn't even play poorly. It's just the Devils were that much of a better team. It feels weird that I'm not super worried about the goaltending, but this goes hand in hand with what we talked about before. They start slowly. The goaltenders this year right now are bouncing back. that if they have a game where they're not able to kind of keep them in it a little bit to kind of staunch the bleeding, then maybe things will get a little bit uglier. But right now, I don't think Jake Allen's going to stay at a 930 forever. If that regresses down to 910, 911 still, I think he becomes a very valuable trade asset. But right now, it's good that they can just alternate these guys, especially with the schedule coming up here. I'm curious to see who starts against Vegas and who starts against the Coyotes. I imagine it'll probably be Montembeault and then Allen, just to see what they got there. And then next week, maybe rotate Primo in again, and we'll see. Maybe he plays against the Blues, or there's not exactly an easy game in there, but I think there's an opportunity for him as well. Also on the up list this week, Cole Caufield. Come on. How can I not put Cole Caufield on this list? He has become the fastest player to 6 overtime goals in Montreal Canadiens history, and just dude's electric. He is just absolutely on fire. He is that guy for this team, and God, it warms my heart to see that. When Cole Caufield is on, it. Someone asked in our Slack chat, is Cole Caufield the most exciting Canadiens player since PK Subban? I really think that, I don't think it's understating to be like, that is true. When he has the puck in overtime, the crowd is buzzing, just like they did whenever they saw PK Subban winding up for that slap shot. There's a visible buzz in that building. He's well on his way to 50 goals, 40 goals at the very least. And he's on my up list this week because I can't ignore just how good Cole Caufield has been this year.
I think Jay said it best after the game. He literally was like, well, it's Cole Caufield. What are you going to do about it? And I think that's true. It's Cole Caufield. What are you going to do about it, opposing teams? Like, he's so good. He's so fun to watch. It's just watching him brings joy. Like, he loves playing hockey and he makes us love watching hockey. And the Canadiens haven't had that player in quite some time. And I feel like no matter what happens with this team, and people keep trying to explain and prove to us that Cole Caufield is not the real deal. How much more do you want?
I was going to say, like, and people are like, well, Nick Suzuki's not scoring. Nick Suzuki has 7 points in 8 games. He's fine. Like, the Canadiens team is never a team like Toronto or a Tampa where it is, here is the peak of everything, where these guys get 90 to 100 points a season. It's a bunch of dudes who are, Caufield might have 40 goals and like 20 assists and end up with 60 points. And Suzuki might cap out at 75 to 80 points with like a 35-40 split there somewhere. That's okay, because also guys like Sean Monahan are stepping up. Like, it's Cole Caufield. What are you going to do about it? You shouldn't be worried about these guys on here. Yeah, the lines need shuffling, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit this week once they get some practice time in, but not right now, because that's not important. What is important is we're doing 3 up and 3 down, and we love Cole Caufield on this podcast. And I guess my last one, I'm going to go dip back into the Rocket for this. Lias Andersson has been phenomenal for the Laval Rocket this year. When they've needed a big goal, Lias Andersson has been there for that. And if they need a guy to fill in the bottom 6 in Montreal, Lias, I know people want to see Joshua Waugh. I absolutely know and understand that.
But the bottom 6 is not a place for Joshua Waugh.
Exactly. I do like Joshua Waugh. I think when they have a healthy, center core there, that a Waugh with, Dvorak and somebody else can maybe be a very fun line. But for right now, let him stay there. Lias Andersson, I think, could be a really good, like, energy addition kind of person to that bottom 6. He's got some offensive upside there, and he's been just very good for the Rocket. He's been scoring goals for them when they have mattered. Even if they can't stop letting them in, he's still doing exactly what he was brought into, and that was to start putting up points and helping guide this offense. And he's doing so with aplomb right now.
I mean, I can't say more than that. And it's really nice for the Canadiens to just have options. We don't want them to need them.
Do you have anyone else? Yes. Do you have anyone else on your up list this week? Because I know I've just kind of taken this over.
No. I did want to say, like, real quick that, like, Nick Suzuki, the concerns about him were overblown.
Wow, shocking. What a change of pace for the Montreal Canadiens fan base, that the concerns about Nick Suzuki might have been overblown. Who would have guessed? Anyways, not us, because we love you all dearly, and I promise I don't mean that meanly, but we do this every year. we'll talk about Slavkovsky at another time, but that's going to wrap up this show today. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens. You can email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Follow Laura at The Active Stick. Follow myself at Scott Matla. It's going to be a late week this week. We've got some special ideas for those late night recaps for y'all. We will be back to preview the game on our Monday recording and everything else. And until then, we will see you all next time.